Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be my testimony slash life story. I'm going to tell you guys kind of how I have come to make my faith my own and the things that have kind of made me into the person that I am today. I think this will be pretty helpful for you guys to get to know more of who I am and what I believe. And so without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so we're gonna start off with how I grew up. I basically grew up in a normal household, both of my parents, and I have two siblings. My parents have never been divorced. It's been a happy marriage, and I grew up in a very happy household. Me and my youngest sibling didn't always get along the best, but we're working at it now, and besides that, it's just been a pretty good childhood, and so nothing super interesting there. I was kind of the typical child, I guess you could say. We went to church normally, and I accepted Jesus into my heart around when I was 4 or 5 years old. But of course, you know, at that age you don't really understand what you're gonna go through in life, and so it was kind of just like a child thing that I feel like a lot of kids do, and then they recommit themselves to Jesus further down the line, either as maybe young teens or older teens, or even into young adulthood. So I grew up inviting my friends to church, you know, kind of the normal thing, like, hey, I'm going to church. We went on Wednesdays, was kind of our night for like the younger kids to go, so I would always invite my friends to go with me. And so that was pretty normal for me, just having people be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll come to church with you, no big deal. And for a while I had one of my best friends, she came with me, and she actually invited Jesus into her life when we were in 5th grade. And then further down the line in middle school, she really did a 180 and fell away from everything, and we aren't friends anymore. And she is living a pretty interesting lifestyle, not anything I would approve of. So that can just show you that all of your effort, I guess you could say, when you're younger, it might not seem like it's paying off, but I think I've planted a seed in her life, and hopefully later down the road she'll just realize, oh, maybe what Caitlin was talking about is actually true, and I've been straying from it for a pretty long time, and maybe she was right. So I've just always grown up with inviting people to church and having them say yes, and it was just what I did. I was pretty known for inviting people to church, and especially in my high school years, my youth pastor would say that I was probably one of the only people that invited as many friends as I did to church, and so she was just kind of proud of me for that. So that's kind of how I just saw church. I saw it as normal, and that basically everyone should be going, so I was just inviting everybody because it was so much fun, and I wanted everyone to experience what I was experiencing. So I grew up pretty normal, and then 5th grade hit, and I realized that life is not all rainbows and butterflies. Up until that point, I had never gone through anything, I would say, either like traumatic or anything that would make you realize that life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, basically. So it started in the winter, I would say, when my neighbor died, and we were really close with these neighbors. And just one day my dad got a phone call and said that our neighbor had died, and so that was a huge shock to me, especially being so young. I didn't really know how to handle it, and so learning how to cope with that was pretty difficult. And then either around that same time or a little while after, we found out that my grandpa had cancer. And it wasn't one of those serious cancers that there wasn't a high survival rate or anything. It was a pretty high survival rate, but you know, being in 5th grade, you don't really realize those things, and so that was also scary, but he's okay now, doing good and everything. And then around that same time, one of my best friends was diagnosed with leukemia, and that was scary because getting cancer as a kid, you never know. And so that was hard to deal with, and dealing with all these things at once, it just, I don't know, as a young kid, you don't really understand it, and so you just try to cope with things in your own way, and I think I handled it pretty well. The kid that was diagnosed with cancer is cancer-free today, and so he's doing well. So it was just learning to deal with those things at a young age. That was kind of difficult, but you know, I had my faith and church and everything through it all. So at that young of an age, I didn't really understand how to run to God in those times of trouble. I just kind of like cried myself to sleep, basically, or just worried about it and didn't really know how to cope with it. So yeah. So growing up in elementary and middle school, I had a lot of friends. I could probably count maybe over 20 friends, but they weren't super close friends. They were just people that I would know, and you know, as a young kid, you just know everyone in all of your classes. You invite them to come over and you just hang out, and they're not like best friends or anything, they're just friends. But I had a lot of friends, and I was always hanging out with people, always calling people, always just doing things with people. And so I just felt like a normal kid, really. And once I got to high school, my place was band. I am a band geek, a total band geek. I did everything. I did just the regular band, pep band, jazz band, marching band. I even joined and started a flute choir. So my instrument was flute. In the jazz band, it was saxophone, and then I did quite a bit of piccolo in my high school days. So I found band, and that was really my place. I found really good friends there, and the first couple of years of high school were really good, you know, just kind of finding your way in. I would say I was part of the popular people of band, and that sounds kind of funny because nowadays band kids aren't seen as popular, but within the band, I would say I was pretty popular. So during my freshman year of high school, my great-grandpa died of liver cancer, and as a 9th grader, I had gained more knowledge of God and His love and everything He can do for you, and so I had learned kind of how to run to Him in those times of trouble, but I was so close to Him. He is still the person that I look up to today. He's my role model, and so losing him was probably the hardest thing I've ever been through, and it was just a really, really hard time, especially being in 9th grade when you're new to high school and you don't really know what's going on. But luckily I had a huge support group. My family is super close, and so we all kind of came together to deal with that, but that was the hardest part in my life, and that's really when I realized that the world sucks sometimes. So yeah, then I got to my junior year of high school, and everything basically went downhill. Some stuff happened between me and my friends, and I basically got shut out of my whole friend group. I basically lost all my friends. I was going through some difficult times with my friends from church as well, and so I felt so alone. That is the most alone I have ever felt, and I hope to never feel that way again, because it was a very hard time, and I would cry myself to sleep probably every night, and I would just ask God, why? Why am I going through this? Why do I have to deal with this? It's so hard, and it went on for what seemed like forever. I was like, God, just please give me somebody. I need a friend. And he found me a friend. It took longer than I thought it would, but eventually this girl that I had met in 7th grade, we just kind of knew each other as acquaintances. We hadn't really talked much or anything, but I got her to join marching band one year, and all of a sudden we just became best friends. We are basically the exact same person. We believe the exact same things. We have pretty similar personalities. We have very similar family backgrounds, and so she became my best friend. And then my senior year, I became closer with one of the freshmen and then a junior at the time, and so we kind of had our little group of 4, and that's who I finished out high school with. So I didn't have many friends, but I did know people in high school after that. So I thought I still had quite a few friends after high school, but I quickly realized that was not the case. I graduated high school, and I felt alone. Not as alone as I did junior year, but I really did feel kind of alone. But I always had my best friend to go to, and so I realized that as long as you have even one solid friendship, then you can basically do anything. As long as you have somebody there to encourage you and to uplift you, it doesn't matter how many friends you have, it's the quality of the friendships that you do have. And after high school that summer, I went on a mission trip to Honduras with my church, and that is really when my faith became my own. I realized that I just want to spread God's love to everyone, and I want to make a difference in somebody's life. And so going to Honduras, it connected me with people around my age that didn't even know English, and yet I was still able to connect with them because I speak a little Spanish, not enough to, carry on a full conversation, but enough to create a friendship with someone. And so that is really when I started making my faith my own, and just trying to find who I am in Christ. And so after that, I was on like a missionary high, but those quickly fade, and so I realized that my relationship with Jesus, it wasn't really going anywhere, and even today I'm still struggling with finding a personal relationship with Jesus. And so that's something I'm struggling with now, and it's not easy to make time to actively pursue a relationship with God. And so that's something that I'm working on now, and I want to make Jesus my best friend, and I want to embody everything that he is about, and just become more and more like him every day. And so my testimony isn't done, obviously. I'm not that old. I have many more years to further my testimony, but that's just a little snippet of my life and how I've grown up. And so I hope this was helpful to you guys, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'll answer basically anything. So thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!